All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning show. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for Tafshin Pei Hey, the Tilson Mishpacha, for dedicating all the Shurim and Joshos this year as a zechus for besuros tovos for Klal Yisrael. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Teves, the Kelman Mishpacha, dedicating the Shurim this month in memory of Amit Ben David Levy, the brother of Itay Levy, who was killed al Kiddush Hashem in Gaza on the first night of Chanukah. We hope that on the merit of our Talmud Torah, his neshama will have an aliyah and his family a nechama. Our week of learning sponsors, Zevi and Shoshy Daniel, Leili nishmas, Zevi's father, Yitzchak Yisrael ben Refoel Noach Yosef. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, his neshama will have an aliyah, his family a nechama. All those who need a refuah should have one together with Kol Choli Yisrael. The Rebbe Shalom should bring our hostages home b'shalom and b'karav, and should allow our holy soldiers to be successful. B'chol Maaseh Yedeihem. So with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Chav Zayin 27. We are picking up Emir Hashem on Chav Vav Amud Beis 26b, and we left off. All right, we have a lot to do today. So we left off. Davar Acher. Davar Acher. Actually, let's just pick up Amr of Hanan, which is about 2, 4, 6, about 8 lines up from before it gets wide. We actually did this part, but just to reorient the sugya a little bit. Amr of Hanan. Lama nikra Shema Toshia. Why is Torah called Toshia? Mibnei Shema Teshes Kochol Shel Adam. Because Torah saps you of your energy. Again, that part we spoke about yesterday. You're not going to go through that again today. So the Gemara says, good. Davar, another possibility is Toshia. What does it mean, Toshia? Shenitna bechashai mipnei hasatan. Torah was given quietly because of the Satan. Now, it's interesting. What exactly does this mean? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, it's almost right across from Rashi. Mipnei hasatan, shumakatreg v'amar testapik le'elyon, v'lo yimasru aluchos be'ad Moshe. So apparently the Satan was against the giving of the Torah to man. He felt that it should remain in the celestial sphere, and therefore, again, it should not be given to man. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to give the Torah kind of quietly, so that the Satan didn't know about it. So I said, this is actually quite interesting, right? Because the Torah wasn't exactly given quietly. So what does this mean, bechashoy? So this could mean a couple of different things. So possibility one could be that this is actually a reference to the second luchos. Remember again, the first luchos had a lot of fanfare. And that's why part of that is why the Gemara attributes the fact that those luchos didn't last. It was too much, it was bapumbi, it was too much fanfare, too much going on, too much publicity. And that's why again the story doesn't really end well with the first set of luchos. The second luchos were given in a much quieter fashion, in a much more tsanua fashion, and that's why ultimately again they endured. So it's possible that it's a reference ultimately again to the second set of luchos. That's possibility one. Possibility two is what the Gemara is talking about over here is not even as much about the giving of the Torah, as much as it is about the way in which we acquire Torah. That it is important for Torah to be acquired b'chashai, quietly. What does that mean? It's easy when a person learns to become a Bal Gaiva. A person says, I've amassed knowledge, look at what I'm doing, look at what I'm accomplishing. And of course, there's this fine line between, on one hand, being very proud of your accomplishments and celebrating those accomplishments, but at the same time, maintaining a proper sense of humility. Torah only works if it's accompanied by humility. If Torah is not accompanied by humility, that's where the Satan gets involved. Another possibility is Toshia. What does it mean, Toshia? Devarim shal tohu sha'olam meshusas leim. This is so beautiful. The formulation here is fascinating. Torah is words of tohu. Now, at first glance, that does not sound good, right? Because remember, again, our association with tohu is gracious, right? Tohu vavo means astonishingly empty. What does it mean, Torah is words of tohu? Look at Rashi. Devarim shal tohu. So dibor ukriya ba'alma. So Torah is interesting. Torah is comprised of words. I will say words often don't have a mamoshos. They don't have a substance to them. And yet, olam meshusas aleim. How beautiful is this? Torah is words. Words don't have mamoshos. Don't really have a substance, thank you. Don't really have a substance to it. And yet again, it's those very words upon which the world is created. So it's the great anomaly and great beauty and great holiness of Torah. That on one hand, it doesn't have substance like everything else that is material in this world, yet the world can't endure without it. So beautiful. Amar Ula, Machshav Mo'alas Afila Divrei Torah. Both says a very profound Gemara. So Ula says, once again, these formulations are interesting. Machshava Mo'alas Afila Divrei Torah. What does it mean? Rashi says, Machshava Daigos Halev Al Mizonoso Shel Adam. So as Karo say, if a person is preoccupied with his parnasa, and a person is worried about his parnasa, so worry about parnasa could undermine one's spiritual development. Shene Emar, made for Machshavas Arumim, v'lo ta'asena yedehem toshia. So we'll say it's a very profound Gemara, and I think Ula's not even, this isn't like a statement of indictment, right? This isn't like a statement of negativity. This is a statement of fact. This is the way that it works. So I'll say every person knows this. When I'm worried about my parnasa, when I'm worried about being able to pay my bills, and I'm worried just about my material life, I don't mean material in the excess fashion, just the ability to maintain my parnasa, that absolutely upends and undermines the ability to truly focus on spirituality. However, Amarava im asukin l'shma ina mo'eles. But if a person learns Torah l'shma, then even if at the end of the day he has worries about his parnasa, he will still be able to focus on his spiritual growth. So what does this mean? So if you think about it, sometimes not being able to engage in spiritual development because of worries about parnasa in and of itself is inherently contradictory. My parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In times when I'm struggling with my parnasa, those are dafka the times that I need the Ribono Shel Olam most. So Ula is pointing out that the nature of man is that worry about parnasa often creates an obstacle to spiritual growth or to growth in Torah. But yet, again, Rabbi says, but if you recognize that parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so dafka in those times when I struggle is the times that I need to be closest, then ultimately, again, then even struggles with parnasa will not undermine my spiritual development. Which essentially is, as Rabbi said, that you could use life challenge. In this case, it's parnasa challenge, but it's not just about parnasa. You could use challenges in life in one of two ways. Either they could create a wedge between myself and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or to bring me closer. Now, when we say create a wedge, I don't mean the fact about questioning how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do this to me. I mean on a basic level. When a person encounters challenge, a person can allow all of their energy to be devoted to keeping themselves keeping themselves afloat, and not having anything left in the tank for spiritual development. Or a person could say, no, dafka during this time of challenge, that's when I need the Ribono Shel Olam more than anything. And therefore use this challenge as a springboard for closeness. It's all a question of perspective, all a question of how a person wants to utilize the opportunity of life challenges. Shneimar Rabos Machshavos Levish V'atzas Hashem Hitakum Eitza Sheyesh B'Dvar Hashem Hitakum Li'olam. So Eitza, the Gemara's understanding of Eitza, which means spiritual development. Sheyesh B'Dvar Hashem, which is Lishma, which is ultimately, again, for the purpose of coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hi Takum Li'olam. This will endure forever. So I'll say, on one hand, Ula, describing the human condition, struggles with parnasa, and for that matter, struggles in life, tend to distract a person from spiritual development, understandably so. Rabbi coming along and saying, just understand, challenge also presents an incredible opportunity for spiritual development. Because challenge reminds me, I have no one and nothing else to rely on in this world but HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So dafka challenge is the time to solidify, concretize, bolster, and build that relationship with Hashem. All a question of how I choose to utilize the opportunity of life challenge. Incredible. I'm going to go to Emosai. So remember again, Rabbi Yehuda said, back to the Mishnah for just a little bit. Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah that Allah, so all of these people who are apostle eidos, like for example the Mesachik Bekuvya, the Mafricha Yonim, the gambler, so Rabbi Yehuda says that's only if they have no other profession. Right? But if they have another profession, then these individuals won't be apostle eidos. Right? His Lashon was Rabbi Yehuda Emasai, Bizman She'elam Umnus Elahu. When this is their only profession, Aval yesh lahem umnos shalo. I'm sorry. Aval yesh lahem umnos shalohu. But if they have another profession that's not gambling, pigeon racing, or all of these other detrimental things, then Allah Lamaisa they are kosher leid. It says the Gemara. Amra across the second wide line. Amra biyavo. Amra b'lazar. Locha Rabbi Yehuda. Dalach was Rabbi Yehuda. But Amra biyavo. Amra b'lazar. Kulan tzrichin hachroza bebezdin. Shabbos says it's very interesting. So comes along. Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Lazar that all of these individuals, before you officially passel them for eidos, you have to make an announcement in Beis Din. Right? Now, again, what's the point? What's the point of that? What's the point of that? Hachraza, Rashi says over here, Hachraza Beis Din, ve'enon efsal eidos ad sheyachrizu bebeis din lohodia psulon. So what's the idea of the announcement? So in other words, before you passel someone from being an aide, because he's a pigeon racer or a shvius or a shmita merchant or something else, you have to announce. Why do you have to announce it? Why? This is like the warning. This is the warning. It's almost telling the individual, we are going to disqualify you very shortly. Here's your last chance to get it together. So the Gemara says, Roa pligi baravacha v'ravino. What about a shepherd? Now we'll say, remember again, shepherds, what's interesting, shepherds have a terrible reputation, right? Why? What are they known for? Right? Theft. I just want to point out, it's always so intriguing to me how all of our greatest leaders throughout the generations were all shepherds. Right? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, David HaMelech, right? After David, Moshe Rabbeinu, right? All, this week's parsha, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is Roa, son, Yisrael, right? Chosno, he's Moshe Rabbeinu shepherding. Moshe Rabbeinu's first encounter with the snares because he was out shepherding. Just interesting, by the way, how sometimes it's not the profession, but it's the man. Everything is about, so the majority of shepherds seem to be unscrupulous, except the ones who aren't. So interestingly enough, so what about a shepherd? Because shepherds were known to be such thieves, do they need this announcement in Beis Din as well? So, pligi baravacha v'ravino. Chad amar bayachraza, the chad amar lo bayachraza. So, machlokes, one opinion said, yes, even shepherds need an announcement. Others said, shepherds don't need an announcement. The man amar lo bayachraza, hanudam Rav Yehuda Marav, stam roe apostle. So, according to the opinion that says you don't need to announce about a shepherd, that's because everyone knows stam shepherd is apostle. It's apostle. Alabandar bayachraza, my stam roe apostle. But according to the opinion that says that even a shepherd needs an announcement, what do you do about the statement in the Brisa that in general you have to make an announcement about shepherds? So the Gemara says, what do you do about the statement that says stam roa apostle? To be stama machrizin ale. It means that mistama you're going to have to go ahead and announce about the shepherd. Okay, so we'll say so. Therefore, interestingly enough, we seem to be adopting this approach that before you disqualify any of these individuals, you have to announce in Beis Din. Right? Ruvain ben Yaakov is a pigeon racer, and just want to let you know he's going to be apostle eidos. This way, again, that announcement allows Ruvain ben Yaakov to get his act together, should he choose to do so. Does a shepherd need an announcement, or is he just stam disqualified? Machlokes. Listen to this case. Hahu matana dahava chasimi ale trei gazlanim. So there was a shtar matana, right? So Reuven gave Shimon a matana, a gift, and they had two witnesses, and the witnesses who signed on it were both gazlanim, were both thieves, and therefore apostle eidos. So Rabbi Shmuel wanted to wanted to certify the document as kosher. Why? Because there was never an announcement made about these guys. Never an announcement made about these two witnesses. Therefore, because there was never an announcement made, they're not disqualified. Rav says, 1 second. So it's actually a very interesting qualification. So Rava said back, 1 second. The idea of having to make an announcement, that's called with a rabbinic thief. We'll say, what's a rabbinic thief? That's not a thief with smicha, right? A rabbinic thief, right, means that's someone who committed an act of gezel midrabanan. The examples of that are Mishnah, Mesachik, Bekuvya, Mafriach, Milyonim, right? Again, the gambler, the pigeon racer. The problem with all these individuals is that it's rabbinic thieves. So those are the individuals who require an announcement. A biblical thief. What's a biblical thief? Someone who goes over to someone and steals their wallet, right? Steals their car. That's a good old biblical theft, right? That does not require any kind of announcement about it. Such a person like that is automatically disqualified from eidos. Okay, let's go back to Nachman. Ochle davar acher psul le'edos. So we'll say this is fascinating. So Rav Nachman says as follows. Ochle davar acher. Now what does that mean, ochle davar acher? If you look at Rashi, Rashi says, ochle davar acher mekabli tzedakah min hanochrim tavichil Hashem machmas mamon v'havele kirasha dechamas. So we'll say someone who accepts charity from non-Jews. If you accept charity from non-Jews, such a person is pasal le'edos. Now again, the concern over here is that such a person has created a chil Hashem. Why has he created a chil Hashem? Why do you have to go outside of the community for tzedakah? Why do you have to go outside of the community for help? Right? There's plenty of help available within the Jewish community. There's no need to take tzedakah from outside of the community. And doing so represents a chil Hashem because it makes it look like Jews are not compassionate. So I will say, now we're going to see over here, the thing that makes people pasal le'edos is money. That's what makes people pasal le'edos. So when a person takes money or uses money or in an unscrupulous way, that's when they become pasal le'edos. So therefore, this act of taking charity from a non-Jewish source shows that a person wants money so badly that they're even willing to take it again from outside of the community. Such a person is pasal le'edos. But that's only if they did this publicly. Aval b'tzina lo. But if they did this privately, then it's not a chil Hashem, and therefore again they're not pasal le'edos. Furthermore, even if they took it publicly, that's only if they had the ability to receive this money privately and not debase themselves. But if a person had absolutely no choice, in other words, their only option was to receive money from a non-Jewish source and to do it publicly, this was their only way to survive, then halacha l'maisa, those are extenuating circumstances, they're not pasal le'edos. Incredible. Am Nachman, hachashud ala arayos, kasher le'edos. So I said, this is very interesting. So Rav Nachman says, someone who is chashud ala arayos, which means someone who is suspect regarding immoral behavior, is still kasher le'edos, which is fascinating. Look at Rashi, why kasher le'edos? Deba'inan rasha dechamas, dechsev al tashes yadcha eid chamas. So we'll say, it's interesting, what we just said before. What disqualifies a person for eidos is not simply sinful behavior. Why I will say, if what disqualified a person was the commission of an aveira, then what? You would have zero pool of eidos, right? Zero pool of eidim. Everyone does aveiros. So what disqualifies an aid are financial indiscretions. That's what we're concerned about over here, because once a person is we'll call it either will lie, will cheat, is not honest when it comes to monetary matters, then we're concerned that in transactional law, they're not going to remain honest either. But interestingly enough, indiscretions in other areas of Yiddishkeit, the person is chashud al arayos. Okay, obviously it's not good. It's not good for any of us to commit averos. But that does not take away from my ability to be a witness in a financial transaction. Kasher le'edos. Amar Sheshes. So the Gemara says, Amar Sheshes, Ani Mari Arban Bekasvei Kasher. So it's interesting. Is it possible that a person will go ahead and get 40 lashes on the shoulder and still be kasher le'edos? And I feel like Rashi, Arban Bekasvei Chayim Malkusi, Afapi Shein Shemas Rada Amar Mar, Malkin Alo Tova Shmuel. So both say, interestingly enough, what Rav Sheshes was saying was like this. A person who is known to the community to be chashud al arayos, to be suspect regarding immoral activity, we would flog such a person like that. So the Gemara says, somebody's going to get malchus, we're going to flog him, and he's going to be kasher le'edos. Seems a little bit strange. Amar Rava umod Rav Nachman le'inyan eidos isha shu pasal. And Rava says, ultimately, again, Rav Nachman would agree. So again, Rav Nachman still holds that someone who is chashud regarding immorality is still going to be kasher le'edos. It's going to be kasher le'edos. Why? Because the only thing that disqualifies you regarding eidos is financial indiscretion, but not moral indiscretion. But even Rav Nachman will agree that when it comes to testifying about a woman that her husband is dead, we're not going to rely on that guy, right? In other words, because remember again, an Eid Echad is believed to say, let's say Rachel's married to Ruvain, so an Eid Echad is believed to say that Ruvain's dead. Ruvain's dead, right? That's a special kula that Chazal made by Eidos Isha. But someone who is suspect regarding immoral behavior, we're not going to believe him. Why? Makes sense. Because we're concerned that maybe he's lying because he set his eyes upon this woman. So Amravina vitim rapapalo Amr el lafuka aval iluya leslanba. And Ravina said, 1 second, it's only for him to give eidos regarding permitting a woman, getting a woman out of marriage. But let's say again, this same guy testifies that Rachel's married to Ruvain, that she's a married woman. So that ultimately again will accept this testimony for. So the Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. What would you have thought? What would you have thought? So maybe I would have thought like this. I would have thought that perhaps halacha l'maisa, he prefers that she's married, right? This immoral guy prefers that this woman is married. Why? To save maim ginuvim yimtaku. Stolen waters are always sweeter. So right, the Gemara says, Kamash Malon, no, that's not true, because he's immoral. So because he's immoral, he would rather that she's not married, because this way she's available to him. So therefore, if he testifies that she's married, we ultimately believe him. Okay, Rav Nachman, so the Gemara says, Ganav Nisan, Ganav Tishrei, Lo Shmei Ganav. This is great. Rav Nachman says, a Ganav Nisan and a Ganav Tishrei is not called a Ganav. Now, what this sounds like is someone who only steals during Nisan and Tishrei. Yeah, this is in Baltimore, holiday season, right? So a Gan of Nisan, Gan of Tishrei. So that's the idea is like a recreational thief. Not all the time, right? Just during Nisan and Tishrei, such a person ultimately, again, is not considered to be a Ganav. Now, what does this mean? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, Nisan, Zman Katsir, Tishrei, Zman Botzir, Va'asif. So remember again, Nisan is the harvest season. So Tishrei is the ingathering season. So what this means is as follows, I will say. So this is talking about, let's qualify. So the Gemara says, Hani mili ba'arise v'davar muat. So u'davar sh'ning malachto. So here are the qualifications. We're talking about a sharecropper, right? Something that is completed and only a little bit. Okay, so now I understand the picture. What are we talking about over here? Someone who is a sharecropper working for someone, and what do? They end up taking more than they're entitled to. So remember again, what does a sharecropper get? A sharecropper gets a portion of the crop. That's what he gets. That's what a sharecropping arrangement is. Now, the halacha is that a laborer, when he's working in the field, is entitled, let's say again, he's working with finished produce, he's entitled to eat while he works. We learned these halachas in Bava Metzia, right? What he's not entitled to do, he can't put it in his utensils, he can't bring it home. A sharecropper is not entitled to that, right? Because a sharecropper is a different financial arrangement. A sharecropper gets a segment, a percentage of the produce, and doesn't get to eat while he's working. So the idea over here is we're talking about over here a sharecropper who's eating while he's working. So the Gemara says he's a thief, but such a thief is not disqualified for eidos. Why? Almost like I both say, it's going to sound strange. It's like an understandable theft. Okay, he's more a heter. He figures out, listen, I'm working really hard. I'm entitled to this. I'm hungry. If a regular laborer gets these benefits, so certainly I should get these benefits. So because he has a whole chachma worked out, he's not really a bona fide thief. So because he's not a bona fide thief, therefore Allah Chalamaysa, he's still permitted to give eidos. So the Gemara says, Ichrei drav zivid, chad ganav kacha desare, upaslei. So we'll say, so again, Rav Zivid, Ikari Rav Zivid. So Rav Zivid had farmers, and what happened? Chad ganav kav desare, upaslei. One stole a kav of barley, and Rav Zivid disqualified him. Chad ganav kibur dahini, upaslei. And one went ahead and stole, literally again, a cluster of dates. And Rashi says over here, Kibur dahini kimin eshkol yish tumarim harbe ba'anaf echad. A big cluster of dates, and he passed him, Hano kaburoi di kibur nafsha biyom tov shalatzeres. So we'll say, so another story. There was a chevra who buried the dead on the first day of Shavuos. Now we'll say, now this is actually very interesting. So if you take a look, Rashi says over here, Kibure Kovrei Mesim. So these guys went ahead and buried the dead, Jewish grave diggers, and they buried the dead on the first day of Shavuos. Now, you're not allowed to bury the dead on Yom Tov Rishon. There is a halacha that says, we saw this morning, Cotton, that you are allowed to bury the dead on Yom Tov Sheni. And they allowed that, Chazal allowed that, ultimately, again, als kavod hameis. Now, today, we don't do that. Today, we don't do that because we have refrigeration. So therefore, again, there's no concern that the mace is going to decompose if we wait to bury it until after Yom Tov. It happens to be still in some of the Hasidic communities, they still bury on Yom Tov Sheni, even presently, that's still the minhag hamakom. But again, in our communities, you do not see this done. Not even. These guys were Mechal Yom Tov. You're not allowed to bury in Yom Tov Rishon. But they were Mechal Yom Tov, they buried on Yom Tov Rishon. Now listen to this. In words, Shamtinu Rav Papa upasnu le'edus. So ultimately, Rav Papa excommunicated them and made them pasul le'edus. Now, why did he make them pasul le'edus? Because the assumption was, why were they doing this? To make money. To make money. Right? They wanted to make money. So essentially, they worked on Yom Tov. They buried the dead on Yom Tov. Happens to be that their work is a very nice chesed, shalom, chesed for the dead, but it's still chil Yom Tov. V'achshirin Rav Huna ben David Yoshua. Rav Huna ben David Yoshua said, no, they're still kosher le'edus. Still kosher le'edus. How can you make them kosher le'edus? They're a shayim. Savar mitzvah ka'avdi. These guys thought that they're doing a mitzvah. Again, obviously they were b'chalo Yom Tov, which you're not allowed to do. But they were mora heter. They made a heter for themselves because they thought that after all they're doing a mitzvah. So the Gemara says, Vaha kameshamtina, but they were excommunicated. So the Gemara says, Savar kapara ka'avdi le'rabaran. So ultimately, again, they figured like this. They figured, you're right, we went ahead and we did something wrong. In other words, we'll say, they thought, this is interesting, at least Rav Papa felt, at least Rav Huna felt, that this was like a good example of like an Avera Lishma. They thought that they were doing something good, right? Now, granted, it was an Avera, but they were burying a Yid, so they thought it was something good. What about the excommunication? They looked at the excommunication as a cleansing process. So they felt that they came out kind of like ahead of the game on all of this. So they were excommunicated, cleansed, and therefore they should be all right. Okay, fine. So the Gemara says, bottom line, by the way, of course, again, halacha l'maisa, it is wrong. You're not allowed to bury on the first day of Yom Tov. But interestingly enough, Rav Huna ben David Yoshua felt that you see in these kind of cases, when a person has an explanation for their behavior, and the explanation kind of holds a little bit of water, even though it's erroneous, they're not necessarily pasul le'edus. Incredible. Itmar. Both side top of zayin. Good. Top of zayin. 27a. Itmar. Eid zomen. Okay, suppose an interesting case over here. Eid zomen. So what do you do? What do you do ultimately? Again, remember, an eid zomen means a witness who has been proven to be false. So remember again, both side, the process for eidim zomen. Reuven and Shimon show up, and Reuven and Shimon say, we saw that, A killed B on Monday morning, and then the second set of witnesses show up and they say, Reuven and Shimon, you couldn't have seen that because you were with us on Monday morning. Okay, so now Reuven and Shimon are proven to be an Eid Zomim. So the Gemara says, so now the Shalom says, so an Eid Zomim obviously is not permitted to give Eidos. Is not believed. He lost his cheskes kashrus. The Shaila is, how or when do we apply that status? So Rabbi says, L'mafreyahu nifsal. Abai says he is retroactively disqualified. In other words, retroactively disqualified all the way to the date in which he went ahead and he gave testimony. So let me illustrate where this could happen. So let's say, for example, that Reuven and Shimon give their testimony on Monday, January 13th, right? Yud Beis B'Teves. You're Gimel B'Teves, right? So they go ahead and they give their testimony on the 13th of Teves. So now what happens? Let's say they're not made zomamin, right? Until the 13th of Adar, right? It's a couple of months later, right? Let's say that happens. It doesn't happen until a couple months later. So now both say. So now the shaila is, once they're made edim zomamin, the shaila is, does their zomamin status start from now, from the moment they're made edim zomamin, or does it extend back retroactively? Now, both saying that this is a yisodistic shaila. Why? Because the question is, what happens if they engaged in other testimonial activity in between the time that they gave their testimony and they were made edim zomamin? They signed on shtaras. They were edim under a chuppah. Right? All these different kinds of things. So again, do we extend their eid zomim status retroactively, or no, only from the moment they were made zomamin and forward? So this is machlokes. So Abai says, L'mafreyahu nifsal. Rava says, Mikana la'abah nifsal. Abai says, we extend their status retroactively. Rava says, no, only from this point going forward. Abai amar L'mafreyahu nifsal. So Abai says retroactively, Me'idna da'asid rashahu, va'torah amra tashes yadcha im rasha, al tashes rasha. So Abai says it's retroactive, because ultimately, again, from the time, now that they were made zomamin, that means from the time that they gave testimony, they were rashayid. And the Torah says you cannot use a rasha for any testimonial or aid activity, and therefore halacha l'maisa, they're retroactively invalid. Which also means, according to Abaye, anything that they have done testimony-wise, eidos-wise, in the interim is going to be undone. Rava Amar Mikana Lahabahu Nifsa. Rava says, no. The only time that an Eid Zomim becomes possible is from the moment that they are made Zomim and going forward. Why? The Gemara says, Eid Zomim Chidashu. Because the whole concept of an Eid Zomim, right? They will say the whole idea of Eidim Zomim is a Chidashu. What's the Chidash? My chaz is the Samchis Ahani, Samach Ahani. So we'll say, because remember again, what happens to Eidim Zomim? A second set of witnesses is come along and say, Reuven and Shimon cannot have seen what they claim to have seen, why they are with us. Well, why should you give any more credibility to the second set than you do to the first set? Yet the Torah believes the second set. That's a tremendous chiddush. The chiddush only applies from the moment that it occurs and going forward. So therefore, again, to extend the Eid Zomim status retroactively would essentially be to amplify the chiddush of Eidim Zomim, which we're not ready to do. So Rabbi says, therefore, fundamental machlokes between Abaye and Rabbi. Rabbi says, so again, I just want to point out, we normally think of the concept of Eidim Zomim as everything happening in rapid succession, right? Reuven and Shimon show up in Beis Din, give testimony, and then, 10 minutes later, another set of witnesses, bust through the door saying, Reuven and Shimon, you were with us, you couldn't have seen it. But you could see there is this possibility that Reuven and Shimon give testimony, and then a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, a second set of witnesses show up and say, Reuven and Shimon, you could not have seen what you claim to have seen. You were with us at that time. So then, Machlokes Abaye and Rava, do they become Eidim Zomim from the time of the testimony, or do they become Eidim Zomim ultimately retroactively? So that's the fundamental machlokes. So Amri, others say Rava Namika Abaye Yisrael. Others say that Rava holds like Abaye. Rava holds like Abaye. How so? Umatam kamar. So matam kamar mikana lahaba. Why is it ultimately again? Why is it that we only say that the witnesses are Eidim Zomim from now, from the time they made Zomim going forward? Very simple. Mishum psida l'kuchos. Because also here's the issue. The issue is you're going to put people at a disadvantage. Remember again, as we just said before, it is quite possible that the witnesses had engaged in much testimonial activity between the time that they gave their testimony and between the time that they were made into Eidim Zomim. And everyone was using them thinking that they were good witnesses. If you begin to now upend their testimonial activity retroactively, you're going to put many purchasers at a disadvantage. So my benai, what's the practical difference between them? Two sets of witnesses testify about Reuven and Shimon, or they were disqualified ultimately again because of their theft. So Rapapi conducted himself like Rava, and therefore disqualified them only from this point going forward. Maravashi said that follows Abaye. That's the Mafreya. V'hilchasa kavase da'abaye biyal kigam. What's a famous Gemara? The halacha follows Abaye. Abaye in cases of Yal Kigam. We're not going to go through all of these cases, but you can see Rashi actually quotes all of them. And interestingly enough, halacha l'maisa the ayin of Yal Kigam is Eid Zomim. Our case, we paskin like Abaye that halacha l'maisa when an Eid Zomim is disqualified, he is retroactively disqualified back to the moment that he gave the testimony. Which means that if Reuven and Shimon gave their testimony on the 13th of Shvat, and they were disqualified, but they only became Eidim Zomim on the 13th of Adar, anything that they did between the time that they gave the testimony and were made Eidim Zomim is invalidated. So if they were used for transactions, they were used for documents, they were used for chasanas, everything is going to have to be done over again. Incredible. So once we pass like Abaye, Zomim disqualified the Mafreya. Incredible. Mumar, Ochel Leves Teves. So we'll see some other examples of people who are disqualified. So listen to this. Mumar Ochel Leves Te'avon. So we'll say this is a person who eats non-kosher L'tei Avon. Te'avon means because he likes it. Now, remember again, there are two ways to commit an Aveira. Number one way is L'tei Avon, because I want to. Right, because it's enjoyable, because I like it, versus lahachis. Lahachis means I do something to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So essentially, this is what's called the pleasure Aveira and the theological Aveira. Pleasure Aveira, we are intimately familiar with, right? I want to do it, I like it, it's enjoyable, it's fun, okay, so I'm just going to do it, right? Theological Aveira, I'm taking a principled, there are principled sinners, right? Who go ahead and, right, that's what it is. principled versus pleasure. There are pleasure sinners, principled sinners, right? So principled sinners, I'm taking a principled stance against God. I do not believe in this. So remember, ochel l'te'ava means a guy who eats non-kosher just because he likes it. Just because he likes it. I enjoy it. It's pleasurable to me. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Divrei hakol pasal. Everyone agrees that such a person is pasal leidos. Such a person is not fit for testimony. Now, I'll say, what's the idea over here? So interestingly enough, the Gemara says, why is a person eating non-kosher? Why is he eating non-kosher? So the Gemara says, probably because it's cheaper. Right? Probably because, right, anyone who ever sees these ads, right, for non-kosher, it's incredible, right? Get 14 hamburgers for 50 cents. You know, whatever it is. It's like ridiculous, right? It's a half a mortgage to go out to eat, right, in a kosher place, right? So a person eats non-kosher food. Why is he doing it? So because it's cheaper. So we'll say, so what does that mean? That means I'm sinning for financial benefit. Okay, so remember again, what's the common theme over here? When you sin for financial benefit, you are pasal leidos. You're pasal leidos. That's it. So therefore the Gemara says, now interestingly enough, lahachis. So this is so fascinatingly counterintuitive. So everyone agrees that a mumar l'te'avon, a person who eats non-kosher food because he likes it. The Gemara says it can't just be because of the taste, because kosher food is wonderful. It's because of the cost. So such a person is sinning in order to save money. Sinning because of money, you're automatically pasal leidos, unfit for any testimony. What about lahachis? What about a principled sinner? Person who sins in order to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is incredible. Abai Amar pasal. Abai says such a person is pasal. Rava Amar kasher. Rava says he's kasher. Rava says, right? Isn't this fascinating? So now we would have thought just the opposite, right? That everyone would agree. Because we'll say why? Because remember, it's important to keep, what disqualifies you from testimony is when you're dishonest when it comes to money. That's what drives this. If you're dishonest when it comes to money, we can't trust you when it comes to transactions, because you may or may not be telling the truth, and you may or may not be signing on the truth. It's interesting. If I have other religious inconsistencies, that does not disqualify me from eidos. That's why we saw the person who is even chashal hara. This person may be immoral. Okay, it might be immoral. That's an issue I have to work on, right? But lamaisa, I can still be believing when it comes to financial matters. Even if I am a principled sinner, where I do things in order to rebel against God, again, not good, but it doesn't necessarily erode my financial integrity. So because of that, I could still potentially go ahead and give eidos. So Abai Amar Pasal, Abai says you're Pasal, Rava Amar Kasher. So Abai Amar Pasal, Abai says Pasal, why the Havali Rasha? Rachmana Amar Atashes Rasha Aid. So Abai says, again, if you're a principled sinner, you're rebelling against God. If you're rebelling against God, you're Rasha. If you're Rasha, ultimately, again, you can't go ahead and be an aid. If Rava says Kasher, Rasha the Chamas Ba'inan. Rava says you're Kasher. Why? Because the only type of Rasha that is unfit to give testimony is what kind of Rasha? A financial Rasha. And this guy's a principled Rasha, not a financial Rasha. Incredible. So may say the Gemara is the Kasha. Atashas Rasha aid. Torah says, do not go ahead and make a Rasha an aid. Atashas Chamas aid. Who are these people? Elu Gazlonin. This refers to thieves. Umolin B'Shvius. People who go ahead and do business with Shemitah produce. So my love, echad shvuas shav echad shvuas mammon. So when we're talking about, again, Molin B'Shos, people who take oaths, who are unscrupulous with oaths. Who is that talking about? Is it not talking about someone who takes a false oath, or someone who takes false oaths regarding money? So we'll say, so you see from here, even non-financial discretions invalidate you from Eidos Lo, Idi shvuas mammon. Umar shvuas shvuas talmud. No, it means monetary oaths. So Meisvei Atashes Rasha Aid, Atashes Chamas Aid, Elu Gazlonen Umalave Ribis. This refers to people ultimately again who are thieves and ultimately lend with interest. Tiyufta da Abaye Tiyufta. And this seems to refute Abaye, because it seems to say the only thing that makes you unqualified to give eidos is financial indiscretion and not theological rebellion. Incredible. Maybe this whole thing is a machlokes tanoim. So what's machlokes tanoim? Eid zomim pasal l'chal Torah kula de Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says that someone becomes an eid zomim, they are pasal to give eidos. They are pasal to give eidos in anything in the Torah. Rabbi Yosef, when is that so? Shehozam din lefashos. That's only if you are made an eid zomim when it comes to capital cases. Aval huzam b'dinei mamanis. Kashal dinin nefashas. This is interesting. If a person was made an eid zomim for monetary matters, they're still believed to testify for capital matters. Now, what's the logic behind that? The logic in Rabbi is, it's fascinating. When it comes to the world of sin, everyone has their line, right? Things that I would do and things that, I would never do this, right? I would never do this. So I will say, so interesting enough, not apparently, we know this. It occurs in the world of lying as well. A person might be willing to be a false witness when it comes to monetary matters, but that same person would never lie when it comes to capital matters. So even if a person is proven to be an eid zomim when it comes to monetary matters, they would still be believed to testify when it comes to capital matters. So name Abai Krab Meir v'Rav Krab Yossi. So say that Abai holds like Krab Meir, and Rav holds like Rabbi Yossi. To which the Gemara says, Abai Krab Meir, Abai Krab Meir, where's the Abai holds like Krab Meir? So the Amar, Aminon Mikula L'chumra. Because again, he holds ultimately again, that we go ahead, if a person is willing to do a more lenient sin, they'd be willing to do a more chamrous sin as well. Rav da Amar Krab Yossi, da Amar Mechumra L'kula Aminon, Mikula L'chumra Lo Aminon. And Rav says like Krab Yossi, no, once a person has transgressed something severe, they're certainly willing to transgress something less severe. But if a person has only transgressed something less severe, they wouldn't necessarily be ready to transgress something more severe. To which the Gemara says, "Lo, aliv Rabbi Yossi kuli amalo pligi." According to Rabbi Yossi, no one disagrees. Keep pligi Rab Meir. Abaye kirab Meir. Abaye holds like Rab Meir. V'Rava ad kan lo kam Rab Meir hasam ela gabe eid zomim. So Rab Meir only espoused his position by eid zomim. Why? The mamon, so the Gemara says, Eitzomim, the mamon. Because when a person lies about monetary matters, derala shamayim, verala brios. Such a person, I will say, ultimately, again, is committing a sin against the HaKadosh Baruch Hu and a sin against people. Aval hacha, when it comes to a case, I will say, of ochel nevelos lahachis, that's a person who eats non-kosher as a principal sin, right? As a theological rebellion. Derala shamayim, such a person is committing a sin against the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, "Ve'ein rala brios," but a person is not committing anything against their fellow man. Ultimately, again, lo v'hilchasa kavasa dabaye. I will say, but bottom line, the halacha follows Abaye. So therefore, I will say what the Gemara seems to be saying over here. So the Gemara is saying, what do you mean the halacha follows Abaye? The halacha says that even a principal sinner, right? What we call again a mummer lahachis, which is a person who does averos in a principled way, to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is also pasol le'edos. So the Gemara says, 1 second, vayisosiv, right? So the Gemara says, but we just refuted Abaye, to which the Gemara says, the hahi Rabbi Yossi, that reflects of your Rabbi Yossi. V'tihavina Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, alach Rabbi Yossi. So the Gemara says, but even Rabbi Yossi, what about the fact that Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, Shani Hasam, Distam Lon Tanakrab Meir. Even though normally Rabbi Yossi, in this case, the Stam Tana goes according to Rabbi Meir. The Gemara says, V'hacha Sasam Lon. Where do we know that from? Kiha de Barchama Katal Nafshe. So it's an interesting case that happened over here. We'll come back to the halacha l'maisa in just a moment. So I just want to point out what's happened over here. Interestingly enough, everyone is agreeing that a mumar lete avon is pasal eidos. Someone eats non-kosher because they like it. Such a person is absolutely unequivocally unfit for any testimonial capacity. Now, interestingly enough, why is that? What's the logic behind that? The Gemara understands this to be a financial crime. Right? That's what it is, right? Why is the person eating non-kosher? It's cheaper. So, what do you see? You're willing to sin to save money. Okay, well, once a person is willing to sin to save money, then by definition they're unfit for all eidos, because that shows you're willing to live on the wrong side of the law for financial gain. Well, once that happens, then I'm not believed. Such a person is not believed for any matter regarding testimony. Interestingly enough, the machlokes Abaye and Refoel is, what do you do about someone who is a mumar lahachis, a principal sinner? So this person is sinning not for financial gain, but to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's fascinating. So there's no financial piece over here, but there's a strong theological piece over here. So Abaye says, person is puzzle. Rava says, person is kosher. It seems to be we're tilting in the direction of Abaye, and let's finish this off. So the Gemara says, listen to this. So now the Gemara wants to suggest we're going over here like Rabbi Meir. Stam Tanakh Rabbi Meir. So listen to this story. It's a great story. I mean, it's not a great story, but it's an interesting story. Kiha, the Bar Chama Katal Nafshe. This guy, Bar Chama, killed someone. Amalei Rish Galus, or at least he was accused of killing someone. Amalei Rish Galus, Abba Bar Yaakov, Puk ayin ba. So the Reish Kalusa, right, the head of Babylonian Jewry, said to Rabbi Abba, go, you be the lead investigator on this. Investigate this, see what's going on. So if this guy Bar Chama killed someone, so we'll say literally means poke out his eyes. Now Rashi points out over here, it doesn't mean poke out his eyes. The Reish Kalusa did not have the power to put people to death or to do types of injury like this. Rather, what it means is punish him. Punish him, most probably financially. So what happens? So what happened? So two witnesses showed up and they said, listen, this guy Bar, what was his name? Bar Chama. This guy Bar Chama, he killed someone. So two witnesses show up in Beis Din to say Bar Chama killed someone. So I was listening to, okay, fine. So that seems to be the end of that. So listen to this. So we'll say, listen to this. So what happened? So Bar Chama brought two other witnesses. And two witnesses testified against one of the accusing witnesses. Right? So again, right? Bar Chama is accused of killing someone. Rabbi Abba is leading up the investigation. He's convening the Beis Din. When they're in Beis Din, two witnesses show up and they testify against Bar Chama, saying Bar Chama killed, we'll call him Ruvain. Bar Chama killed Ruvain. Then what happens? Bar Chama brings two more witnesses. Those two witnesses testify against one of the accusing witnesses, discrediting him. And what do they say? The Gemara says, Bechad mehana. Chad amar kamai didi ganav kaba duchoshla. Vechad amar kamai didi ganav kata. Ganav kata, Amit Ben David will say, katav diburtia. So again, so these two guys, so Bar Chama brings two other witnesses. These two witnesses show up and they say one of the accusing witnesses, stole. Now, they have a dispute about what he stole. One says he stole barley, the other says he stole the handle of an axe. Either way, the point is they're testifying that what? This guy, one of the accusing witnesses, is a ganav, and because he is a ganav, he is disqualified from testimony, from testifying, and because he's disqualified from testifying, therefore there are not two witnesses against Bar Chama. Okay, so let's analyze. So let's analyze this. So the Gemara says, Rab Meir. So ultimately, again, the whole like Rab Meir. For Rab Meir, the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, halacha Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi ha'amar, chuzam b'dinei mamanis, kash l'dinei nefashos. But 1 second. Normally, if there's machlokes Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi, you follow Rabbi Yossi, then what does Rabbi Yossi say? Just because someone is disqualified or made into an eid zomim by monetary matters, they are still believed for capital matters, right? What's Rabbi Yossi's logic? Just because you would lie about money doesn't mean you would lie about the capital case. And therefore, according to Rabbi Yossi, even if the witnesses are correct, that one of the accusing witnesses stole, that would still not disqualify him from being a witness against Bar Chama. But here we pass like Rabbi Meir. We'll say, what does Rabbi Meir say? Rabbi Meir says that even if you've been shown to be an eid zomim for dinei mamanis, that automatically disqualifies you for dinei nefashos as well. And we pass like Rabbi Meir. What do you say? We pass like Rabbi Meir. So the Gemara says, "Mimai ilei mehadistan kol roi ladon dinei nefashos roi ladon dinei mamanis." Anyone who is fit to be part, whether it means to adjudicate as a judge or to testify regarding dinei nefashos, is certainly believed for monetary matters. So money, Rabbi Yossi, if that's Rabbi Yossi, ha'ika eid zomim demamon. According to Rabbi Yossi, will say it's not necessarily the case because you do have a person who is made, once he's made into an eid zomim for monetary matters, the kashal dinei nefashos upasla dinei mamanis. Elalav Rabbi Meir. Rather you see it's Rabbi Meir. So mimai. Dilma bepsula yuchsin kai. Maybe not. Maybe he's talking about an aide who was disqualified because of a genealogical issue, not because of any other testimonial issue. Because if you don't say this, seifa diktani yesh rai ladon dinei mamanos saying rai ladon dinei nefashos. There is such a thing as a witness or as a judge who is fit for dinei mamanos but not fit for dinei nefashos. Amai eno rai. How could that be that he's not rai? It's some dinei nefashos. If he was made a zomim b'dinei nefashos, rai dinei mamanos, he still believed for monetary matters. Vaha divrei hakol pasalhu. Ella bepsul yuchsin kai. Rather, he must be talking about someone who is disqualified because of genealogical disqualification. Hachanami bepsul yuchsin kai. Ella hacha stam lantana disnan elu hinapsul. In other words, say we must be following Rabbi Meir because why would we learn in our Mishnah? Who are the people who are apostle for Eidos? Hamasachet Bekuvia. gambler, malave ribis, lending with interest, mafricha yonim, dove racers, sochrei shvius, people do business with shmita produce, va'avadim, zaklal, kol eidos she'in ha'isha ksheira la, any testimony or any testimony that a woman would not be believed for, afhin in ksheira la, so too they are not believed for as well. Mani, whose opinion is this? Ilim Rabbi Yossi, if you want to say it's Rabbi Yossi, ha'ika eidos bedinin nefashos, shinishik ksheira vein ksheira la. There's capital cases where a woman can't testify, but yet these individuals could. So the Gemara says, "Elo lav Rabbi Meir." So now there must be Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi say, "What do you see from here?" It's Rabbi Meir. Now Rabbi say, "What does it mean for Rabbi Meir?" Rabbi Meir paskins that halacha l'maisa. Once someone has been disqualified for dinei mamanis, they also can't testify for dinei nefashos. This is Rabbi Meir's logic. Now Rabbi say, "Why does Rabbi Meir hold?" Say, just keep your eye on that sheet though. Rabbi Meir holds that once you are disqualified for dinei mamanis, you cannot testify for dinei nefashos. What's the logic there? What's the logic? Because once a liar, always a liar. Once you have lied regarding monetary matters, you have lost your credibility, and we don't put it past you that you would lie for capital matters as well. So the Rabbi said, come, let's go for a circle. Here we go. Come, we're going to see. By the way, I told you, we're going to make it. We're going to make it to the Mishnah. I just want to say, now listen to this. So remember, what's happening over here? Come full circle. Bar Chama is accused of murder. Reish Galusa says to Rabbi Abba, go investigate. Rabbi Abba convenes a Beis Din. Witnesses show up. They say, we saw Bar Chama kill Ruvain. Good. I mean, not good. Right? Bar Chama killed Ruvain. Bar Chama then brings two other witnesses. What do those witnesses say? Those witnesses say that one of the accusing witnesses is not believed. Why? Why? He's a thief. We saw him steal. What did he steal? Barley and axe handle. Either way, it wasn't worth it, right? But Lamaisa, again, he stole. So I will say, so now what's the shayla? So now we've proven that one of the accusing witnesses is a thief. So what's the shayla? Do we paskin like Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi? Rabbi Yossi would say, just because you would lie with monetary matters does not mean that what? You would lie with capital matters, and therefore, again, the witness should still be believed. Rabbi Meir holds that no, once you have been established as a liar for monetary matters, you are no longer believed for any type of testimony, including capital matters as well. And I will say the whole Gemara just showed that what? We paskin like Rabbi Meir, that halacha l'maisa, again, once proven a liar in monetary law, you've lost your credibility for everything. And therefore, I will say, what happens? Here we go. What happens? The Gemara says, I love Rabbi Meir. And therefore, what happened? Rabbi Abba threw out the case. He threw out the case from court. Right? Why? Because one of the witnesses was disqualified. Why was one of the witnesses disqualified? Because it was shown that he was a thief. And once it was shown that he was a thief regarding monetary matters, he lost his total testimonial credibility, and therefore, halacha l'maisa, again, the case was thrown out of court. What happened? Kam Bar Chama nashke akare. Bar Chama kissed Rabbi Abba's feet. Right, kissed his feet. Right, Rashi says shibech besuros because he was very happy with the verdict. The kable lekarge the kulei shane, and he promised to go ahead and get Rabbi Abba exempted from the head tax for that entire year. Right, he didn't have to pay taxes that year. Rashi says over here the kable lekarge the kulei shane latzilo kol yomav mimanas hamelach. And we'll say so. The Maharsha points out he doesn't get such a shkrech for that. Generally, Talmidei Chachamim were exempt anyway from the head tax, so he wasn't really giving. But again, expressing his gratitude. Today, Rabbi will say halacha. I'm still waiting for today. But again, 2 points on halacha. Number one, we pass like Rabbi Meir. That again, once someone is shown to be a liar, they lose their credibility for monetary matters. We extend that to all cases, including capital matters as well. And Rabbi will say again, just to circle back, close out the circuit on Abaye. How do we paskin? Everyone agrees that a mummer lete avon, someone who goes in and eats non-kosher again for their own pleasure, is certainly disqualified because that's a monetary infraction. But what about a mummer lahachis? The Rambam paskins like Abaye, and a mummer lahachis, a principled sinner, someone who sins to rebel against the Kodesh Baruch Hu, is also going to be disqualified from any kind of edus. So I'll stop over here for today. Shkoyach. All right, Chevron Zoom. Have a great day, everyone.
It's worth, that paying his tax or pays taxes isn't a